¿cómo están? Soy Patricia Gómez. Bienvenidos. Hoy en Adelante, un programa especial en el que el presidente del Centro Hispano de Milwaukee y fundador de Adelante, el doctor Tony Baez, conversa con la candidata demócrata a la gobernatura de Wisconsin, Mary Burke. El gobernador Scott Walker no estuvo disponible para participar. Si llegara a ganar las elecciones del 4 de noviembre, Mary Burke sería la primera mujer en ganar la gobernatura estatal en la historia de Wisconsin. Los principales temas de su campaña: empleos, salud y responsabilidades tributarias. Tony Baez conversa con la candidata sobre asuntos decisivos para los latinos, inmigración y educación bilingüe.
Mrs. Burke, welcome to Adelante.
Well, thanks so much for having me here.
Sure. This program was created to particularly address the issues of Latinos in Milwaukee and in the state of Wisconsin. And we always try our best through this program and other means in the community to bring to the general public what candidates are really all about.
Yeah.
What kinds of things you would want for this wonderful state of Wisconsin.
Sure.
That is going to make it a better place for democracy. And so we want to have a chat with you today about some of those issues as they pertain to the Latino community, but not absolutely. We would like you to tell us a little bit more about you and your candidacy and your themes.
Well, thank you so much for having me on here, and I welcome the opportunity to talk with you and to your viewers. And I'm running for governor because I just know we can do a lot better here in Wisconsin. And I'm a fourth-generation Wisconsinite. My great-grandparents were farmers, and my grandpa George was a mailman. And in fact, he used to deliver the mail to the house that I live in today. So I am reminded every day of my deep Wisconsin roots and the values that I was brought up on. But I think here in Wisconsin, we share those same values, whether you recently arrived in Wisconsin or whether you've been here for 6 generations. And those are the values of hard work and commitment to our communities and fairness and helping each other out, but also that we all benefit when everyone has the opportunities and the supports to build successful lives as long as they're willing to do the hard work. And what I see, unfortunately, too often today, and when I talk to folks as I travel around the state, is people are working harder and harder. But unfortunately, there's still too many people who are struggling. And they might be struggling to make sure that their kids have a brighter future or struggling to care for aging parents. And as governor, I'm going to focus on the issues that matter most in their lives every single day. And that's what I'm going to focus on.
We seen in your campaign that you have a positive approach about how to make this state better for everybody. Okay? So I want to ask you some questions about Latinos in Wisconsin, more so with the purpose of ensuring that I bring to this program to your attention some of the themes that are most concerned to us today. For example, immigration.
Sure.
Immigration for us is huge, okay? For example, driving licenses. We need to know where you stand on those driving licenses issues because there's a lot of people that should be driving. It's a safety issue.
It is a safety
issue. It used to be that the state of Wisconsin was almost there. And lately, it has not.
Right.
So, I mean, we want to know how you, as a potential governor of the state of Wisconsin, would address that issue.
Yes, it is an important issue. And as you mentioned, what we have seen is that across the country in Washington, they have failed to deal with the immigration issues effectively. And Congress has stood in the way of making sure that that there is a pathway to citizenship. This has widespread support, particularly in the business community. They realize that, having a good, skilled, reliable workforce is important, and that immigration reform has to be part of that. So we do need officials in Washington who are focused on what is going to work for Wisconsin and for people here. And I hope that Washington does more because the system is broken, and we're not. It affects people's lives. It affects their opportunities, and I want to make sure that we are doing what we can. In the issue that you mentioned about driver's licenses, there are states that have taken on this issue, that have realized that it's a safety issue, It's an issue of making sure that people can get to work. It's an employment issue, along with an insurance issue, and making sure that drivers are insured. And so I look at Utah, which this is a heavily Republican state, but yet they've made progress and have moved ahead on this. So this doesn't need to be a partisan issue, a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a common sense issue to me. And what I favor very much along the Utah lines of a driver's card, so that we would ensure that people had, that they were tested and we have good drivers on the road, that they have insurance, and it does enable that people are able to get to jobs, but also it's about getting to appointments at school, making sure you're supporting your child in their education. It has a lot of implications across people's lives. So as governor, I would work to make sure that we are moving ahead on that.
The discussion has been had already in many states throughout the country.
Yeah.
People are expecting that the state of Wisconsin will join in.
Yes. Well, I would like that, but unfortunately under the current governor, Governor Walker, I think he's indicated that actually even on other measures that he would be prepared to sign and is interested in signing some of those measures that were put through in states like Arizona, that actually take the opposite direction, that make it more difficult in people's lives. So no, I think we have to look at common sense solutions here that are going to work for people in their lives, that are going to help our economy, and we have to continue to put pressure on the people in Washington to say we want a path to citizenship.
Okay, we're going to go to a promo a second. We'll be right back.
Everything about my writing career had been against the odds. Movie extra, cartoonist, toilet scrubber, donut cook. Yeah, I'm a professor now. It's pretty cushy, It's a nice job. I was born in Tijuana. My father was Mexican, my mother was American. And they had met in San Francisco. And he romanced her, and swept her off her feet. She was from New York. And I think she believed she was going to go to a beautiful hacienda in Mexico, But she ended up on a dirt street in Tijuana. My parents would go to the United States every day to work. And so I didn't really see them very much. I spent my days with my grandmother, aunts, cousins. So I learned Spanish before I learned English, so Spanish was my first language. Part of my job, spiritually anyway, aside from our writing career, is to go and talk to lots of people who are carrying a lot of those shames. My dad, he was actually killed at the hands of Mexican police when I was a senior in college. And I was having a really hard time dealing with that. I started doing relief work in Tijuana with a missionary group, feeding the poor at the Tijuana garbage dump. And I spent years doing it. And that is, oddly enough, partially what led to my going to Harvard. Also totally against the odds. And the first book I wrote was called Across the Wire. I don't know if Across the Wire. I wrote about that experience. And it was rejected by every publisher in the country for 10 years. And I remember one of the editors in New York told me, nobody cares about starving Mexicans. I'll never forget it. And that seemed like a real curse at the time, but that became the ultimate blessing because that gave me my agenda. Nobody cares about starving Mexicans. I'll make you care. Urrea's #1 writing rule is wear the bastards down.
let's continue with the issue of immigration for a moment, briefly, because I also want us to explore other kinds of things that are affecting the community, but there is some urgency about resolving some things. Like, for example, tuition equity is a huge thing in the state of Wisconsin because there are young people, a future generation, going to school, and because of a lot of work that was done in the past, they're able to go to school. They graduate, but they're undocumented. They can't do much. They can go to college sometimes because tuition is prohibitive in the state of Wisconsin. So the Dreamers Act was intended to help people, and there was such a thing in Wisconsin. Okay? But the current governor sort of like eliminated that. Where would you go with that? Achieving tuition equity for the undocumented in this state for Latinos is very important.
Yes. Well, what we are talking about is just, paying in-state tuition. And actually, I started an education program that was a partnership between the Boys and Girls Club and the public schools, because I didn't see enough students graduating from high school and being prepared for college or for careers. And so this program right now is in the Madison Public Schools, 750 students. Already 200 have gone on to post-secondary education, either a 2-year or a 4-year program. We're very proud. Out of the last class of 90 students, over 90% of them went on and enrolled in a 2-year or 4-year college. So it's been very successful. Over a quarter of the students in that program are Latino students. Many of them, or some of them, are undocumented. And what we saw is they were in this program in high school for 4 years. They've been living in the United States and Wisconsin since they were, very young. And yet here they are on a program to attend college, and then basically the door was shut on them because they're unable to apply for financial aid, they're unable to pay in-state tuition. And so I put together a scholarship program so that they would be able to get full tuition at Madison College in order to take that next step, and that we would open those doors to them. To me, this is common sense. We want to have an educated, trained workforce that's growing in our state. One of the biggest issues that Wisconsin faces is a lagging economy, and unfortunately, under Governor Walker, we are dead last in the Midwest in job creation. So 10 Midwestern states, and we're 10. Now, I know we can do better than that, but we have to look at how we have a growing, educated, trained workforce, and that's how Wisconsin is going to succeed.
Thank you for that. Within immigration, there's also the issue of ICE, the Immigration Enforcement Office, showing up in courts, keeping people from the courts because now they are afraid to go. Because they supposedly arrest in courts people with a record, but other people who are undocumented suffer the consequences of that. So we hope that you, as a potential governor of the state of Wisconsin, will look into that too. So,
well, it is a federal issue, but obviously, as governor, you want to do the things that are going to help the people in Wisconsin, make sure that we have a strong economy. And I have seen the effects of families torn apart, where people who are contributing, holding down jobs, upstanding citizens in our communities are facing these effects that do hurt our communities and hurt people and their families. And so, I would certainly be advocating for that.
Let me bring you to another issue that's of major concern for us. It's bilingualism. We're moving beyond bilingual education. Bilingual education was sort of like forced by the courts. And the courts told districts all around the country, do something about these kids that don't speak English. Court decisions to deal with that. But now there's a movement towards something that we call dual language education, and the idea that school systems should strive so that the next generation is bilingual, so that we join a global economy. So on June 26th, the Milwaukee Public Schools, for example, passed a resolution that creates a region in Milwaukee, a targeted area that works towards bilingualism and prepares all children to be bilingual in the future. So what do you think about that?
Well, I serve on my local school board, and so actually I'm very familiar with dual language immersion, DLI programs. They have been very successful in Madison, where I serve on the school board, and the success has not only been in terms of Latino children learning better, but actually you have seen improvements in terms of white students in the program, and it is actually one of the most popular programs among white parents. And so this is actually a draw to the school district for the reason that you say. Many parents want to see their children grow up to be bilingual in this type of global economy that we have. And so these are exactly the types of education programs that we should be investing in, that are extremely popular, that show that they're proven results in terms of improving student learning. They're building global citizens and cultural awareness. And these are all good things for Wisconsin, because we know for our Wisconsin economy to be thriving, to be succeeding, to be growing jobs, we need to take advantage of a global economy. And the better that our citizens, our young people, grow up with those skills and that know-how, the more successful we will be.
I thank you for that. We'll be right back. Okay.
My father's mother, Abuela Vila, liked to scare us with stories of La Llorona, the weeping woman who roams the canal and steals children away. She would say that if we didn't behave, La Llorona would take us far away, where we would never see our parents again. My writing is very personal, and when I started to write, I was 13 years old. I didn't think of myself as a writer. When I took an English class at my community college, my English teacher was the first one to ever tell me that, Reinita, you're a good writer. You know, if Cisneros can do it, you can do it. If Isabel Allende can do it, you can do it. She also helped me to start dreaming about being a writer and giving me, you know, that confidence. My first 2 books really gave me that confidence as a writer. They prepared me. My experience of growing up in Mexico without my parents was something that I found to be very traumatic. By me going through what I went through, and we paid the price and my family was broken up and everything, at least my children will never have to go through that. And they have so much more going for them than I ever did at their age. So that to me just makes me really happy.
We're very pleased that you have that perspective on bilingualism. In the city of Milwaukee, where we had these discussions, we thought that it would be good for everybody, not just people of Hispanic background, that you target an area, you pilot things, you move it as an educator, you know about this. Sure. You move it to the rest of the African American children, for example, should be bilingual, why not? Okay? But we're also hoping that this goes to the rest of the state. And now you talk about the value of that, but we are hoping that, for example, WEAC put in its resolutions that up to the 8th grade, all children should receive some access to bilingualism. Okay? Would the state of Wisconsin, under your leadership, really motivate and encourage this and help us seek resources to make this happen?
I want to focus on improving student learning, because right now we are 38th in the country in terms of our educational standards. And there are a lot of initiatives that we need to make sure that we take on and implement well. There's a lot on teachers' plates, a lot on schools' plates right now. So I believe as a business person that when you go with new programs, you have to implement them well. I am concerned that at this time, I also am not sure that I think parents should be able to weigh in on whether they want that for their student or not. But certainly being able to learn from best practices, particularly where this can improve student learning, is really important, and we need to build on that. But I do want to balance making sure that we have the resources to just implement the programs that we have right now, because under Governor Walker, actually, we have seen historic cuts to education, and just in this last school year, 200 school districts saw their state funding cut. And so I don't want to put more on the schools than they can handle right now. I want to engage parents in those decisions. I want to build on best practices. We know that these are long-term issues because also it changes and the type of staff that you need, the skills that they have. And I know that in Madison we already have tremendous problems in hiring bilingual educators. So this is something we have to look at for the long term.
Sure, and I think that we're looking at this issue of bilingualism as an expansion and extension of learning. Good learning requires that in the future everybody be bilingual. I've been to China, Germany, Latin America, and I have to speak in English because that's the only language I know. So I see that, that they're seeing that. But let's move on quickly to the issue of health. Within the Latin community, there's the concern that you have a citizenship population, okay, that is going to be taking advantage of Obamacare and other kinds of things that maybe this state has not been very good at doing. But there's also a population of people who are not documented, who also need access to some kind of care. But Obamacare doesn't, sort of like count them in.
Yes.
But states can help organizations and communities that want to do something to provide some safety, some access to health to that population. Where are you at on the health issue on Latinos?
Well, I visited the community health center on the south side that serves a lot of a strong Latino population. They serve everyone that comes in their doors. We need to be able to build on the efforts of those organizations so that people are able to get health care. And we know that when people don't have insurance, they still get sick, and that actually additional health care costs of uncompensated care actually makes health insurance more expensive for everyone. The increase in health care costs are an issue that weigh on almost every family's lives throughout this state of Wisconsin. So as governor, what I'm going to focus on is reducing the cost of health care for everyone. We have to make smart decisions. We have to make sure that we do things like accept the free federal funding for Medicaid. Governor Walker turned down $206 million in this budget alone. That's money that now the Wisconsin taxpayers are left sort of holding the bag to have to cover. And so we got to make smart decisions that with the goal of making sure we reduce the cost of health care for everyone, that people have access to good health care.
And surely as Latinos, and I've talked to a lot of people in our community, we just want the state of Wisconsin to pass enlightened policies, enlightened practices that ensure that more people have access to those opportunities.
Yes.
And I think that your comments about this are very helpful.
Yeah.
If you become governor of the state of Wisconsin, how would you work with those that want to help government do immigration, bilingualism, health better?
Yes. Well, there's a couple of different ways. First of all, in my cabinet of my top leadership, I want to have Latino representation. So that's first. Also, in terms of the various committees and boards that make up the community input with regards to state policy, again, representation is really important to making sure that people have a voice. I believe that we make our best decisions when we do have different voices at the table that are being able to bring new ideas and different ideas to that. That's how I'm going to be, and that's the type of governor and the type of administration that I'm going to run. So having that input is very important. I'm going to make it a top priority of mine, and including representation from the Latino community will be a priority.
That's very encouraging. because I think that we have not seen a lot of that in government.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
In the past, actually in the 70s, because I'm old, so I was involved at that time, we used to have a lot of people in Madison that were extremely helpful with our communities, and we've lost that.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for that type of thought, and we want to thank you for having the time to come and meet with us and to listen to some of the concerns that this community has and speak to what you will be able to do if you're elected the first female governor in the state of Wisconsin.
Well, I look forward to serving as governor and partnering, being a good partner with the Latino community.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Y al final de un programa más de Adelante, por favor déjenos saber sus comentarios en nuestro teléfono 297-7544 o escríbanos a nuestra dirección de correo electrónico en adelante@matc.edu y visítenos en nuestro sitio del internet en mptv.org y en Facebook. Sintonícenos en Milwaukee Public Television, canales 10.1 y 36.2 todos los martes a las 6:30 de la tarde y en canal 36.1 los miércoles a las 12:30 de la medianoche y los domingos a las 6 de la tarde. Y en MPTV VM 10.3 los viernes a las 6 y 6:30 de la tarde y los domingos a las 8 de la mañana. Soy Patricia Gómez. Gracias por acompañarnos.